People avoid screening because they imagine it may be frightening, embarrassing, or uncomfortable.
A decision so unexpected that even seasoned royal watchers are struggling to explain it. King Charles has reportedly made a surprising move involving Lady Louise, and the reaction has been nothing short of explosive.
A few moments of minor inconvenience are a small price to pay for the reassurance that comes from most people.
Why is one of the monarchy's quietest young royals suddenly being thrust into the spotlight? And could this signal a major shift in the royal family's future? As speculation grows, some insiders believe the development may not sit well with Queen Camilla at all. What Charles appears to be doing behind the scenes has people asking one question. Is Lady Louise becoming far more important than anyone ever imagined? For years, Lady Louise has occupied a unique place within the royal family. She has never been one of the most photographed royals. She has never been associated with controversy. She has never seemed interested in competing for public attention. Yet, despite that low profile, many people are beginning to notice something that would have seemed unlikely only a few years ago. Her presence within the wider royal story appears to be growing. The reason this has attracted so much interest is simple. King Charles is leading a monarchy that is going through one of the most significant periods of transition in modern history. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II marked the end of an era that lasted more than 70 years. Since then, every decision made by the king has been examined for clues about how he wants the institution to evolve. And when people look closely at some of the developments surrounding Lady Louise, they believe they may be seeing one of those clues. The story becomes even more interesting when you consider who Lady Louise is and how different her path has been compared with many other members of the royal family. Born in 2003, Lady Louise is the eldest child of Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh. As the granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II and the niece of King Charles III, she has always been close to the center of royal life. Yet unlike some younger royals who grew up under intense media scrutiny, Louise's parents made a deliberate effort to give her and her brother, James, a relatively normal upbringing. That decision shaped the public image she carries today. Many royal followers see Lady Louise as someone who represents a quieter side of royal life. She attended school largely away from the spotlight, focused on her studies, and has often appeared at family events without seeking attention for herself. When she does make public appearances, the reaction is often similar. Commentators frequently describe her as calm, thoughtful, and comfortable carrying out duties without creating headlines. In many ways, those qualities are precisely what have become increasingly valuable to the monarchy. The modern royal family operates in an environment where public attention can be both an asset and a challenge. Every appearance is analyzed. Every comment can become a news story. Every family dynamic can be turned into endless speculation. Against that backdrop, reliability becomes extremely important. It is one of the reasons why figures such as Princess Anne have earned such widespread respect. Anne built her reputation not through dramatic public moments, but through decades of consistent service. Increasingly, some royal commentators believe that Lady Louise may represent a similar model for the next generation. That comparison is not being made because Louise currently performs the same role as Anne. She does not. Rather, it is the manner in which she approaches royal life that attracts attention. The strongest example of this may be her well-known connection to Queen Elizabeth II. Throughout her life, Lady Louise shared several interests with her grandmother. Perhaps the most famous was carriage driving. Queen Elizabeth had a lifelong love of horses and equestrian pursuits, and Louise developed a passion for carriage driving that many observers saw as a reflection of that family bond. Over the years, royal fans often noticed how naturally Louise seemed to fit into traditions that had been important to the late queen. Rather than treating those interests as ceremonial obligations, she appeared genuinely enthusiastic about them. That matters because royal institutions are built not only on constitutional arrangements, but also on continuity. When members of the public see younger generations embracing traditions associated with respected figures such as Queen Elizabeth II, it creates a sense that those traditions will continue into the future. For King Charles, continuity has become one of the defining challenges of his reign. He inherited not only a crown, but also enormous expectations. His mother remains one of the most recognized and respected figures in modern British history. Any monarch following such a long and successful reign would face difficult questions about how to preserve stability while also adapting to changing times. This is where discussions about Lady Louise begin to take on greater significance. Although she is not a senior working royal, there has been increasing interest in whether she could eventually take on a more visible role within the institution. Nothing official has been announced, and there has been no formal indication that such a change is imminent. However, the conversation itself has become noteworthy. Why? Because the monarchy is currently navigating a period in which dependable family members are more important than ever. In recent years, the number of working royals carrying out official engagements has become a regular topic of discussion. Senior members of the family have had to shoulder significant responsibilities, and questions about future support structures continue to attract attention from both the media and the public. Within that context, every younger royal naturally becomes a subject of interest. Lady Louise's name often appears in those conversations because she possesses something that cannot easily be created through public relations campaigns. She has authenticity. Her public image developed gradually and naturally over many years. There was no major effort to turn her into a celebrity figure. There were no carefully crafted campaigns designed to make her popular. Instead, public affection appears to have grown organically through occasional appearances and positive impressions. For a monarchy that depends heavily on public trust, that kind of reputation is valuable. This brings us to King Charles. One of the most consistent themes of his reign so far has been an emphasis on service, duty, and long-term stability. While media attention often focuses on dramatic stories, Charles has frequently highlighted the importance of commitment and responsibility. When observers look at Lady Louise, they often see those same qualities reflected in her public image. That does not mean she is being positioned for a specific future role. It simply means that many people believe she represents the kind of figure the institution values. And that perception has grown stronger whenever she appears alongside senior members of the royal family. Each appearance may seem minor on its own: a family gathering, a ceremonial occasion, a public event connected to royal traditions. Yet, royal watchers have a habit of looking beyond individual moments and searching for broader patterns. When enough small moments begin pointing in the same direction, speculation naturally follows. Some commentators have even suggested that King Charles may see particular value in encouraging younger relatives who are viewed positively by the public. Again, there is no official confirmation of any specific strategy, but from a practical standpoint, the idea makes sense. Every institution benefits from trusted people. The monarchy is no different. As older generations gradually reduce their public responsibilities, attention inevitably shifts toward those who may help carry the institution forward in the future. In that environment, someone with Lady Louise's reputation becomes increasingly interesting. Yet, as her profile continues to grow, another question has started attracting attention. What effect could this have on the broader dynamics within the royal family? Whenever one royal begins receiving more public interest, comparisons inevitably emerge. That is simply the nature of royal coverage. Newspapers, television programs, and online commentators constantly examine who is gaining influence, who is attracting support, and who appears to be shaping the future direction of the monarchy. It is in that atmosphere that discussions surrounding Queen Camilla occasionally enter the picture. To be clear, there is no verified evidence of any conflict between Camilla and Lady Louise. Publicly, there has been no indication of personal tension. Any suggestion of private disagreements remains entirely speculative. However, some royal commentators have noted that growing attention toward younger members of the family can alter media narratives. The more interest people show in figures like Lady Louise, the more questions emerge about how different members of the royal family fit into the monarchy's future. And those questions are only becoming louder. Because what began as occasional praise for a hardworking young royal has gradually evolved into something much bigger. More and more people are asking whether Lady Louise could eventually become one of the monarchy's most important assets. Not because she seeks attention, not because she is campaigning for a larger role, but because her reputation was built in a way that is becoming increasingly rare. Quietly, consistently, and without ever appearing to ask for recognition. That is precisely why the conversation surrounding her continues to grow. As King Charles shapes the next chapter of the monarchy, observers are paying close attention to every signal. Some believe Lady Louise's rising profile is simply a reflection of public affection. Others suspect it may reveal something deeper about the king's long-term vision for the royal family. And that is where the story takes an even more intriguing turn. Because once people began discussing Lady Louise's growing importance, attention quickly shifted to a much larger question. What happens if her influence continues to expand? And how might other senior figures within the monarchy react if one of the family's quietest members suddenly becomes one of its most valuable? That question has sparked a wave of speculation among royal watchers, and it is the reason so many people are now looking much more closely at Lady Louise than ever before. Here's part 2, continuing naturally from part 1. That question has become one of the most discussed topics among royal observers. Not because Lady Louise has suddenly become a major public figure, but because her growing popularity seems to reflect something larger happening inside the monarchy. For decades, the royal family has relied on a relatively small group of senior working royals to represent the crown. The system worked largely because Queen Elizabeth II had an extraordinary ability to hold the institution together. Her reign lasted longer than most people could remember, and many members of the public associated stability itself with her presence. The situation today is different. King Charles inherited a monarchy that is navigating major changes. Some senior royals have stepped back from public duties. Others have taken on larger workloads. At the same time, public expectations continue to evolve, and every decision made by the palace is examined more closely than ever before. In that environment, dependable family members matter. That is one reason discussions surrounding Lady Louise have continued to grow. She represents a generation that is young enough to appeal to the future, while still maintaining a strong connection to the traditions that many people associate with the monarchy's past. Perhaps nowhere is that connection more visible than in her relationship with the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. Throughout the late Queen's life, observers often notice similarities between the two. These comparisons were not based on rank or constitutional importance. Instead, they focused on personality, interests, and approach. Like her grandmother, Louise has often appeared comfortable away from the spotlight. She has shown a genuine interest in equestrian activities, particularly carriage driving. Following Queen Elizabeth's passing, photographs of Louise participating in carriage driving events attracted considerable attention from royal followers. Many saw those images as symbolic. They appeared to show a younger member of the family carrying forward traditions that had been important to one of Britain's most beloved monarchs. Whether intentional or not, those moments helped strengthen Louise's public image. People tend to respond positively to authenticity. They are often able to tell the difference between carefully managed publicity and genuine enthusiasm. In Louise's case, her interest in carriage driving appears to stem from a real personal passion, rather than a desire for public approval. That distinction matters. Royal history is filled with individuals who became popular because the public believed they were sincere. Often, the most admired members of the royal family are not the ones making the most noise. They are the ones who seem genuinely committed to their responsibilities. Princess Anne is frequently cited as an example of this. For years, Anne earned praise for carrying out hundreds of engagements annually without seeking attention. Her reputation was built through consistency rather than spectacle. Interestingly, some royal commentators believe Lady Louise could eventually follow a similar path. Again, there is no official indication that such a plan exists, but observers cannot help noticing certain similarities. Both women developed reputations for hard work. Both have generally avoided controversy. Both appear more interested in service than celebrity. Those qualities become especially significant when viewed through the lens of King Charles's long-term goals. The king's reign has often been described as one focused on efficiency and sustainability. Even before becoming monarch, Charles spoke about creating a streamlined monarchy that concentrated responsibilities among a smaller number of committed individuals. That idea continues to influence discussions about the future. If the monarchy is going to remain effective with a more focused group of working royals, then every dependable family member becomes increasingly valuable. This is where Lady Louise's name continues to surface. She may not currently occupy a central constitutional role, but she represents something the institution always needs: trust. Trust cannot be created overnight. It develops gradually through years of public observation. And what makes Louise particularly interesting is that her reputation appears to have developed almost accidentally. She was never presented as a future star of the monarchy. There was no major campaign introducing her to the public. In fact, much of her popularity has emerged precisely because she remained relatively private. Ironically, that privacy may have become one of her greatest strengths. In an age where public figures are expected to share every detail of their lives, Louise's reserved approach stands out. Many people find it refreshing. As her profile has increased, so too has media interest in how she fits into the broader family picture. That is where discussions involving Queen Camilla often begin. It is important to separate established facts from speculation. Publicly, there is no verified evidence that Camilla has any personal issue with Lady Louise. There are no confirmed reports of conflict between them. By all available accounts, the family continues to function professionally at public events and official occasions. However, royal commentary rarely focuses solely on confirmed facts. Much of it revolves around perception, and perceptions can become powerful. As Lady Louise receives increasing praise from royal followers, some commentators have suggested that attention is gradually shifting toward younger members of the family who may help shape the monarchy's future. Whenever that happens, comparisons naturally emerge. Some people compare Louise to other younger royals. Others compare her growing popularity to the reputations of established senior figures. These comparisons do not necessarily indicate rivalry, but they do create narratives that the media finds difficult to resist. The idea behind many of those narratives is straightforward. Who will help carry the monarchy forward in the coming decades? It is a question that becomes more important with each passing year. King Charles is now firmly established as monarch. Prince William remains the heir to the throne. Beyond them, attention inevitably turns toward the next generation of royals, who may contribute to the institution's future success. Lady Louise often appears in these conversations because she occupies an unusual position. She is close enough to the center of royal life to understand its demands. Yet she remains distant enough from the constant pressure experienced by the most senior royals. That balance may actually work in her favor. She has been able to observe the institution without being overwhelmed by it, and according to many royal commentators, that experience could prove valuable in the future. Another factor often mentioned is the example set by her parents. Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, have steadily increased their public responsibilities over recent years. Both are widely viewed as reliable representatives of the crown. Their approach tends to emphasize duty, professionalism, and long-term commitment rather than headline-grabbing moments. Those values appear to have influenced their daughter. People frequently describe Louise as grounded, polite, and thoughtful. While public appearances provide only limited insight into any person's character, those impressions have remained remarkably consistent over time. Consistency is important because it builds confidence. The monarchy depends heavily on public confidence. Every institution does, but constitutional monarchies perhaps more than most. Their authority relies not only on law and tradition, but also on public acceptance. When members of the public trust individual royals, that trust often extends to the institution itself. This may help explain why discussions surrounding Lady Louise continue attracting attention despite the absence of dramatic developments. Her story is not driven by controversy. It is driven by possibility. People are curious about what role she may choose to play in the years ahead. Will she remain largely private while supporting the family from behind the scenes? Will she eventually take on additional public responsibilities? Could she become one of the most recognizable representatives of the younger generation? At the moment, nobody outside the family truly knows. What is clear is that public interest continues to grow. The reason is not difficult to understand. Many people see in Lady Louise a combination of qualities that have historically served the monarchy well: loyalty, stability, discretion, a respect for tradition balanced with a modern outlook. Those characteristics have often proven valuable during periods of transition, and there is no question that the monarchy is currently experiencing such a period. King Charles faces the challenge of maintaining continuity while preparing for the future. Prince William and Catherine are focused on their own responsibilities and their young family. Other senior royals continue carrying out important duties across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. Within that larger picture, younger figures naturally attract attention because they represent what comes next. That does not mean every popular royal will eventually receive a larger role, but it does mean people pay attention when someone develops a strong reputation. Lady Louise has done exactly that, without controversy, without self-promotion, without demanding recognition. In many ways, that may be the most remarkable aspect of her story. At a time when public life often rewards visibility, her popularity has been built largely on the opposite approach. She has allowed her actions, interests, and conduct to speak for themselves. That is why so many royal watchers continue discussing her future, and it may also explain why King Charles's apparent confidence in younger family members like Louise has generated such interest. Whether or not her role eventually expands, she has already become something important to the monarchy. A symbol of continuity between generations. A symbol of the quieter traditions associated with Queen Elizabeth II. And perhaps most importantly, a symbol of the idea that not every influential royal needs to stand at the center of attention. Sometimes the people who have the greatest long-term impact are the ones who spend years building trust while others dominate the headlines. That is ultimately why Lady Louise's story resonates with so many people. She represents a different kind of royal success. Not one measured by publicity, not one measured by power, but one measured by respect. As the royal family continues evolving under King Charles, questions about the future will inevitably remain. New responsibilities will emerge. New challenges will appear. New generations will step forward. And while nobody can predict exactly what role Lady Louise will play in that future, one thing seems increasingly clear. The quiet young royal who spent years away from the spotlight is no longer being overlooked. People are paying attention. The public is watching. And whether by design or by circumstance, Lady Louise has become one of the most intriguing figures in the next chapter of the monarchy's story.